Oh, hi, my name is Edio Chukoya, and today I'm going to talk to you about why you want to study for a PhD. The reason for this recording is mainly that I get asked so many times about the reason for my recently completed PhD thesis, and so I thought actually instead of trying to answer the different questions, I'll do a video that explains this. Okay, so I'll talk a little bit more about myself, but I wanted to talk about why you really want to study for a PhD. For most people, if you've gone to a university or you've actually completed a degree, you might be thinking of an idea. Do you do your master's? Do you do your PhD? And PM. So over the next few minutes, I'll try and answer that question. For me, it's actually a dream come true because I've always wanted to take my learning to to the final stage, and the PhD absolutely represents that. So I already had a career in accountancy. I spent several years, over 20 years at Hewlett Packard, but I've always wanted to be an academic. But I wasn't sure I was good enough to do it, and PhD was something I've always thought it was well beyond my reach, mainly because it involves so much. And like most people, I was just overwhelmed by the amount of work that needed to be done. The DBA, which is the doctorate in business administration for people who, I think some people call it the professional doctorate. And then there's also the PhD by published work. So people, if you publish a lot of academic work, they pull everything together. And when they review everything, then they think actually you should be awarded a PhD. The DBA is mainly for people at work, but for whichever one of these you happen to do, then you will still be referred to as a doctor. Let's talk about a little bit about myself and why this is the case. So, as I said to you, I read economics. After that, I was studying for fun. Law was for fun, but I needed to do accountancy because I was working as an accountant, but without the accountancy qualification, then you won't be recognized. Subsequently, did the MBA, and then I went into teaching. And the Higher Education Academy is one of the things you have to do for you to be recognized as a teacher. And then I actually wanted to do a PhD, and I'll tell you more. Let's think about it. Why study for a PhD? One of the things is to be an expert in a particular field. You don't have to be or hold a PhD for you to be able to lecture or become an academic. But for me, it really is about answering a particular question. I've got a burning question that I really need to answer and take it to the next level. Hence, the PhD gives me that particular opportunity, and with no restrictions of how many words and everything else, it will give me the time to really spend time and do it and get something at the end of it. Now, every university, or at least in different countries, have different processes. In the UK, it's different. And because I've always studied in the UK, I wanted to explore something completely different. And one of my colleagues who studied in Poland said to me, the support in giving you that support, and you're not left on your own. In the UK, it will have taken me part-time about 6 years minimum. Theoretically, it would have taken about 3 or 4 years minimum, and then depending on how hard I work. So I wanted to take the opportunity to see how quickly I could do it, and also I needed the support that could have been given. And so those are some of the reasons. But the difference in some countries is that the first 2 or 3 years, if you're doing this part-time, is that you will have to do some of the theoretical work and not even start on your PhD. But because I had an idea of what I wanted to do, I wanted to start straight away with my PhD and I wanted to really start writing my dissertation from day one and plug in the things that I learned all the way and rejiggle my my thesis as I went along. That suited me than to spend a lot of time the first 2 or 3 years just doing theoretical things about research methodology and all of that, and then spend the last 3 years writing my dissertation. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to do both hand in hand, and Poland gave me that opportunity. I went earlier on and said, but why in PhDs? For me, it's a personal interest. It's something that I really, really enjoy. I wanted to answer that question, and it's the question that became the driving force. How do I investigate and do a lot of research to answer the questions? And I'll talk more about about that. So I then went for the university that will give me the opportunity to do it, because it's in economics that I've always wanted. I've been working in accounting and finance, and my original degree was economics, and that was what I wanted to concentrate on. Okay, so many people believe that that a PhD is just a prestigious way of being called a doctor. That might be the case. It really doesn't give you the opportunity to make money. Nobody's going to pay you more. The prestige really doesn't really count for me, because, to be honest, I'm not sure whether it's worth the effort to do that. But be ready for the hard work, and make sure it's something that you're interested in, that you've picked. It has to be a topic, because you will be spending a lot of time doing research. And if you're not interested, it really is very difficult for you to continue to work hard. And I've had stories of people dropping out after 2, 3, 4 years. I've had stories of different things, and in most instances, you will get discouraged by all of these stories. Is one that a lot of people drop out, and you always have an excuse to drop out. So don't do that. Okay, let me talk about the University of Gdansk in Poland, where I did mine. They've been offering PhD since 1997, and the English version, because I did mine in English, was in 2011. I joined in 2014. To be honest, there were not a lot of people who have succeeded in this, and I think it's because of the hard work that people have to put in. So the dropout rate is very, very high. As of June 2019, when I was doing this, only 4 people have passed this. So they've been doing this since 2011, and as far as I know, only 4 of us have actually successfully defended dissertation. So the rate of people passing is really still very low, irrespective of the country. Okay, now there are so many courses that you will need to do. For me, we had to go to Poland, or Gdansk. The faculty was actually based in a place called Sopot, and it was very convenient for me, because I could fly from Lutin 2 hours into Gdansk, and a cab into Sopot. So that was really convenient, and I had to go twice a year for those 3 years, and twice was a full week to Gdansk. Now, some of the courses we're doing was like econometrics, research methodology, entrepreneurship, and you got the options and things that you can do. But because mine was actually in economics, the subjects are mainly about economics. Now, I can show you a bit later some of the subjects if you really are interested. But every single week after, or almost every single day whilst we were there, I will have to see my supervisor at the end of the day to do a plan about the future. What am I doing? How the project will work, the dissertation, what am I thinking about? Even from the first time we turned up there. So for me, that was critical, because I started, not only was I being thought about all these things, but I had a vision of my dissertation from that day, and I could work out exactly what subjects and what things that I needed. The fees was actually 3,000 euros per year, and you have to pay that over the next 3 years. And after 3 years, even if you are still completing your dissertation, you don't have to pay beyond that. I love that, because in some universities you continue to pay several years after, until your dissertation is completed. Also, that was good. Now, let me tell you my quest. Let me tell you what it is that I wanted. I had a burning question, because I've always been an entrepreneur from a very young age. I've set up businesses, I've sold them, I've thought about new ones, and I would not. So I wanted something to do with entrepreneurship. The other thing was, when I visited Nigeria, there was something about lack of economic development in Africa. So I wanted something with economic development in mind. Economics provide that for me, and all the time what I was thinking about is, how can entrepreneurs help economic development? And that was my question, and that was exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to consider the role of entrepreneurship in the economic development of a country like Nigeria. So that was my quest, that was my interest, and that was what I wanted to answer. So look at the process in Poland. You have to complete all the class attendances and also do your assignments over the first 3 years. And I did that. I completed all them. All the assignments were done. They were not absolutely strenuous, but it was some of them are oral presentations in class. Others we had to submit an assignment. I think once or twice we had to do some tests, but all of those had to be completed for you to be able to move to the next stage. Okay, at the same time, I was writing my dissertation. I was constantly in touch with my supervisors by email sometimes, and especially by email was really my supervisor then appointed a second supervisor to help in some of the critical things that I was reviewing. So I had two people really looking at some of the things and critically reviewing my dissertation. And again, they were very, very good in the sense that sometimes I might go offline. They will bring me back and say, this is what this is about. Move these chapters and do this. And they will send me information. In some instances, they will even send me books. They were giving me books. They were giving me journals and all that I could add into my dissertation. So that was really good for me. One other thing, though, you need to think about for your PhD dissertation is there has to be something unique. And that was what I've always been asked to do, is what it is that you are bringing to knowledge, what it is. And I spent a lot of time trying to think about that. Okay. After you've completed all of that and the reviews and everything else, you have to take tests. You have to take some oral tests in front of some professors. My subjects, I chose economics because it was compulsory. I chose management and also English as a language. But you can choose depending on the list of, and the questions will be, you'll be asked two questions. You go in front of a panel, they ask you the questions, you need to answer those particular questions. And a week later, having arranged for my defense, I was allowed to come in. One thing that I absolutely love about this was a day before, my supervisor and the assistant supervisor actually arranged for us to have a rehearsal in the same room that I was going to be able to do the presentation. And I did a rehearsal and they gave me some feedback, which were really critical. And because by giving you a feedback, you can go back and make some adjustments prior to the following day to make the presentation. So that was absolutely critical. For my defense, though, incredible, because I had about 30 minutes. There were the two external, and some professors from my university. The person that led the defense was the vice dean and introduced me and everybody else. And then we started with my presentation. My presentation took about 30 minutes. They started asking me questions. There was a lady there who helped to record some of the questions to make sure that I captured all of the questions. And in doing that, that helped me a lot. Once I've answered their questions, other questions came along. But one thing I actually enjoy and love about the process in Poland was the fact that my dissertations was read on several occasions by different professors in that department. It was only when it was agreed and they gave me feedback, it was only when they agreed that it was up to standard of the university that it was sent out to the two external who are the experts in the field. They also had a feedback about what it was that I did well or not so well, and if I was up to that standard. It was after that that the defense was set up in place. I think if at that point they had doubts or they were not sure that I've done the work up to the right standard, that would have been the end of it. They would have given me feedback. I would have actually had to have gone back and do more work and get it up to the right standard before we get to the defense stage. So really, really good system. Okay, as I mentioned earlier, different countries have different systems and processes in place. My experience basically was about Poland, and in some countries they only give you the option to do a presentation. In others, they don't even give you the option to present, and the externals will come in. There will be a small room and they will sit through and ask you all the questions relating to the specific areas of your thesis. In my case, I was able to defend. It was in an open room and there are quite a few people, whereas in others, there will be very few people. Your supervisor, your external will review this and they will come back with you. But in Poland, it was an open plan and anybody could have been there. You could bring your family members, you could bring a lot of other people, and they will witness it because it's a public defense. Okay, so different systems, is for me personally, I prefer the presentation because it gave me the opportunity to explain to to the external and to my my professors about my reasoning, my justification, and what I was trying to get out of it, and why I selected particular methods and not others as well. So different systems and different, for example, I don't know what happens in the rest of Europe, neither do I know what happens in, for example, the US. So it's different. Okay, so development goals. Well, what happens is all through this journey, though, I wanted to have fun. If you remember when you were kids, you love learning because it was fun. And the same thing, though, that I would suggest for anybody trying to do a PhD is something that you can enjoy and something that you spend a lot of time thinking outside of the box. So don't try and do something that you don't really, you're not convinced about it, or you don't really like it, or it's not your area of specialization. So that is my main advice, because I enjoy that. And as I said earlier on, I was going to tell you some of the subjects that I had to do at the University of Gdansk, and introduction to economics, microeconomics. Those are some of the things, entrepreneurship, research methodologies. Those are the subjects that we were doing, we were taking all through that time. And what I was trying to do was to make sure that I inculcate some of the things as I was learning them into my thesis. Now, I hope this has been really good. I hope it's been very helpful. But for me, wonderful experience. And don't ever get discouraged by people saying that only 2% or only 5% of people pass their PhD defense or are able to complete. That is fine, but nobody is you. Nobody is as good as you. You know what is driving you. You know what is motivating you, and therefore ignore all of the things. I've been on to the different YouTube site to find out before my defense about how it was going to be. But the reality is completely different, because every single one of those will depend on you and your preparation, and also what you will feel and how well you will feel. Now, for me, once I've answered all the questions and everything else, I was asked to step out. It seems like 5-10 minutes, I'm not sure, but it seems like forever, because I was pacing up waiting for them, and then I got called in. They shook my hands, they stood up, they clapped. I was just so over the moon. It was so wonderful. And we then left the place to go into a room where food is being prepared, and with my professors, my supervisors, and all the other professors, I was being congratulated. I really enjoyed that moment, and it was wonderful. And I think it's a great thing, not because of the end result, but because you managed to achieve one of the biggest academic achievements that anybody who is interested in academics can have actually achieved. And it's a great effort for you to have done it. So for me, if you are interested in doing something like this, do it, irrespective of what everybody else says about it. Make sure you are happy. Pick a subject that you like, pick a university that is suitable, pick a supervisor if at all possible. I didn't have a choice. I was given a supervisor, but it was wonderful because she and the second person was so interested in making sure that I get to the end of that process. And it's been a wonderful journey. And they were just as ecstatic as I was. And I thought it was really good. So hopefully you've enjoyed it. If you have, I hope it's really helped you in making up your mind whether you want to study for a PhD or not. In the meantime, best of luck and wishing you all the best. You can actually keep in touch with me on my website, enterprisedoctors.com, where I continue to talk about entrepreneurship, economic development, and everything else. Thank you.